Hello, hello. Welcome to Off Air Talks. I am Lisa MacGregor.
And I'm Ciara Yaschuk. We're back, Lise. We got through the first episode of 2026, and I must say it was quite a hit.
It was a hit. We had such an amazing time, and today's episode is even more important at this time of the year. As we enter halfway through January, we all know everyone has their New Year's resolutions, so who better to talk about all the things fitness and more is the iconic Simon Bennett, a jack of all trades. He is the co-founder of Archetype, an amazing gym in downtown Edmonton.
He's the founder.
Oh, he's the founder.
He's the founder. Why do you think we do founders workout, baby?
And I know you like it's founder and co-founder. Like that's an important term.
Co-founder is Sense Natural.
Co-founder of Sense Naturals. You have a long list, okay, Simon? You overwhelmed me. You also many people might know you from when you created Body by Bennett here in Edmonton, and then we can't forget too. You are is it founder or co-founder of Viper?
Creator.
Sorry,
co-creator.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Co-creator.
So my partner, Shoal Delcourt, and I, we co-created the tool together.
Amazing.
Wow.
Well, welcome and thank you for joining us in the
Yes,
studio.
welcome, Simon. Thanks for coming in.
Ladies, I am absolutely privileged to be here. So I'm excited about what we're going to get into here. This is
There's a lot.
There's a lot.
You are an incredible man with many skills. So
Absolutely. And obviously, it's an important time where a lot of people are getting back to the gym. I mean, have you seen a huge influx right now with people with their New Year's resolutions? I mean, what are your thoughts on people picking that as the start of the year?
Well, first of all, yes to your question. Is there an influx? There is. There's actually a tremendous influx in the industry right now. This is honestly January, February, March, April, and May. I'll throw in May are the best months for fitness. Like it's honestly, it's when you grow your business. The fall is always good because people recommit, but you tend not to get as many new members. So this is January 1 is kind of when new members and people start thinking about recommitting themselves to their own personal wellness programs. And gyms are a big part of that. At Archetype, obviously, we're trying to position a little bit differently in terms of how we do things. But at the end of the day, people make their commitments and hopefully they choose our club, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
So when you say going into May as well, is that just people getting ready for the summer? Also ages. You're noticing kind of younger ages join the gym now.
Yeah, I mean, our demographic is 30 to 40, right?
Yeah.
So when we built Archetype, it was this idea in mind that we were trying to attract that sort of 30 to 40, that individual who is maybe, kind of not midpoint, but starting their career path. They have to be living and working downtown. They're probably, have partners, but they're probably not married, that kind of thing. But we also attract, through the Glenora area and through Strathern on the other side of the city, we tend to attract those people as well. So we do have a large percentage of our demographic that makes up our coaching areas. So some people might think of that as personal training. We call it one-on-one coaching. So it's really performance coaching. And, that interests people as they kind of get into later years. So 40 to 50, that kind of stuff. So, but we have I have a client that I work with right now who just turned 87.
Wow,
and
that's amazing.
Amazing. He's been with me for over 25 years.
Wow.
And
how cool is that?
What a great story to tell. Just like his story is incredible. The man's mind is as sharp as a whip. And he constantly reminds me that he made me. Like that he's very responsible for, if you want to call it success or, he gave me a leg up in the industry. And he was the first guy that I began training many, many years ago. So, but we have people at that age. So it's super cool. And I think a lot of the time I would say that, we are attracting that younger demographic just because I think some of the things we're doing with High Rocks training and, obviously our emphasis on performance training, working with athletes. And I think there's always that inner athlete within everybody trying to sort of, elevate what they do, not just in a shape and aesthetics standpoint, but like from an actual functional standpoint. So we really try to push that with people, mobility and having the right type of strength is important for all aspects of lifestyle, right?
And it probably shows because when you have an 87-year-old you're training, it shows how important it is to keep fitness at any age and start as early as you can to be as sharp as he is.
Yeah, like the Constitution is so key. Like I always use the word Constitution to describe him because he's that guy that if I say, hey, do 10 reps, he'll say, I'm doing 11. Wow. Right? And no, it's crazy. And he'll actually scream at me, So, there's been a couple, it's crazy. There's a couple times where he's like pushing and I'm saying, okay, that's good, Jack, you're done. And he's like, gotta do the extra.
That is
I
incredible.
laugh and I'm thinking like, that's the guy. That's why he shows up all the time. And like, it's not easy as you get older, it gets harder. There's more friction, I think is kind of the best word to describe it. But you get challenged with trying to get in there. But he always shows up and he travels a ton too. And this guy's super accomplished. He's a lawyer in the city and he's just pretty much done everything. He's a community builder. He's a business builder. He's, very instrumental in bringing the World Track and Field Championships to Edmonton many, many years ago. He chaired that. And so he's like just a super, interesting and dynamic guy with cognitive health that I hope I have when I'm his age.
So would you say then, you said you've been with him for 20 years. So your journey started...
Maybe 25.
25. So your journey started with Body by Bennett. The story is pretty crazy. So for people that have no idea maybe who you are or what you're about, start back then, 25 years ago.
Well, 20, honestly, I'm going to get called out on this because I'm going to say it's 25.
25?
Right?
Okay.
But I think it might be longer.
Okay.
But the point being is it's a long time ago. And honestly, I had this idea when I graduated from so I was a University of British Columbia grad, and I just had this I had this passion for training and fitness, and I played hockey and all the rest of it. So that process of getting your body in shape just was very, very something that was easy for me, and I just was super fascinated about it. And I got really curious about what they were doing in the West Coast, which is really more down in the California area with private training, celebrity training, that kind of stuff. But none of that was really happening. A little bit was trickling through.
It was like
BC.
Pilates.
It was like the Tae Bo Gen.
Tae Bo.
Yeah, and personal training was a big thing back then. But that's what kind of inspired me. And I just thought, when I graduated, I thought, like, what if you professionalize it? Because everybody was doing it out of a gym or on the back of a napkin, or like, hey, I'll meet you at the corner bus stop and I'll take you through a workout. And I was like, why can't we just professionalize it and make it really a professional experience, bring it credibility? And so that's when I had this idea to do this studio. But I met David Lowe, who I mentioned to you guys before we went live here, just with respect to like his partnership and his access. He was older and he was much more established in the industry. And so he and I talked it through, and he just loved the idea. And we decided to work on the business plan to build the first Body by Bennett. And subsequently, that was the underpinning to, my steps today, right? Which started many, many years ago. And so we were the very first training facility in I want to say in Canada. Like we were the very first private training studio in Canada.
Wow. Yeah, it's a great name too. Like it's
Bennett.
pretty damn good. I feel like people
It's
use
like you
that.
have the perfect last name for it.
Yeah, the three
Body
B's,
by
right?
Bennett.
Yeah.
And then we later on called it B3. We tried to kind of brand it out of Simon Bennett and put it more into like more of a general name, B3, and B3 kind of took off. And but people always go, hey, I work out at Bennett, or I know Bennett, right, in some capacity. So it was hard to get away from the name. But
one thing I really found really cool before that, though, is that, I think a lot of people might think, oh, he must have got a handout or to start the business or blah, blah, blah. And you didn't. Can you just quickly tell us about how you were able to fund yourself?
Yeah, no, I honestly, crazy story. So that's when I learned that I was entrepreneurial by nature. When I graduated, I was actually, I went and I did an extra degree in education. So I'm actually a trained teacher. But after I went through that, I just realized that wasn't quite what I wanted to do. But it was very difficult transferring all that over to the Alberta system from BC. And I just remember like sort of just being at odds because I had no money at that. All I had was student loans and just lots of debt. And I had a wife at that time as well. And it was like, how are we going to like support ourselves here? And I started thinking about, I remember when I was in BC, I was in a game room and I saw this really cool game, and it kind of intrigued me because I got a chance to play it. And it was this marble game where you would have to stick these marbles into these holes, and it was on a little plastic sheet and it had 6 holes in it, but the marbles had magnets inside them. And so the magnets would repel and attract. And so the challenge was, could you get all 6 marbles to sit on this
Did you ever do it?
piece? Well, yeah. So
No, like, could you get them to sit? Did you get them to sit?
Yeah, because I figured it out,
Okay.
right? So
Yeah,
what
of
happens
course.
is that,
Of course,
anyways,
yeah.
but what is crazy about the story is that I went to the Dufferin game room here. I don't even know if they still exist, but that's what it was. It was called the Dufferin. I went over to the West Edmonton Mall, and I beat down the door of one of the managers in the store, and I said, look, I said, I got this game I want to sell, and here it is. And I said, I'll give you $1 a game. I'm going to sell it for $4.99, and I'll give you $1 a game on every game I sell. And he goes, how many do you think you're going to sell? And I go, I have no idea. But I said, I'm a pretty good salesman. So he says, yeah, what do I got to lose? So he says, you know, it's just extra revenue for us. So I found the distribution center in Quebec City, and I got all these games shipped out.
And let's be fair, that was at a time when internet didn't exist. Like, you were using what, Yellow Pages?
Yeah, you're using the telephone.
I was using the Yellow Pages.
Good job.
For sure. And it was snail mail and all the rest of it.
Wow.
So things didn't turn fast. But what was crazy about this story was, so I remember this very distinctly in my mind. It was November 15th. And so you have to understand, like, I graduated at the end of August, and I'm like doing nothing. I was doing a little bit of substitute teaching. That's all I could do. And then all of a sudden I'm like, what the hell am I going to do? We're getting towards Christmas. And then I had this idea. So it's October 15th, and I'm outside the game room, and I'm trying to get people interested in this game. Like, have you seen this game before? Right? Like, what is it? And I said, well, it's I bet you can't do it. And they're like, what is it? Right? And I'm like, well, I'll show you. It's like, you have to put these 6 marbles in these holes and get them all to sit properly. And I go bang, 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 bang. And they'd be like, well, that looks pretty easy, right? So they'd have parcels in their hand, and they would try to, and then they would rappel on the track and pop out. And they're like, is this even possible? And I said, didn't I just show you? And I'd show them again. And they'd be like, oh my God. They'd drop the parcel, then they'd go down on the knee, and they'd start like trying to place it. And they go, how did you do this? And I said, well, it's called Tricky Triangle. I said, there is a way to do it. And they're like, give me 5 games. Give me, and so immediately the money would start coming across. Like my Uncle Harry's going to love this thing, but the only way I'm going to buy it is if you tell me how to do it. So there was a way to do it. And so, like, what I would do is I got so good at bringing people in and be like, I bet you can't do this. What is it? And I'd say, I bet you can. Just give it a try. And this was kind of the pull in, and they would just walk by, and then I'd get like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows, and I'd be like, okay, I'll show you how easy it is. And I go bang, 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 bang. And they'd be like, oh my God, like this is, and the money would just come. So back in those days, we had like $1 bills. Mm-hmm. Like, you would have all this money. And I used to go, at the end of the day, I had stacks of money like this. So after the first week, I thought, I'm onto something. I got to get other locations. So I went to the manager and I said, I can't even remember his name, but I said to the manager, I said, look, I said, you've got other game rooms throughout the city. I said, what if I hire people and get them to work in the games? So I did that. I had a location in Londonderry Mall. I had a location at Westmount. I had 2 locations in the mall.
That's
and then
unreal.
I was over, and the old Heritage Mall. Do you remember that? I don't know if you guys remember it.
I loved Heritage Mall. It was awesome.
Yeah.
I wasn't here. I was in Moose Jaw.
Yeah. But it's not, it doesn't
knocked down.
Yeah, it's knocked down. So anyways, but Heritage Mall. So I had 5 locations. So anyways, long story short, guys, I did $40,000.
And that's insane money.
In that year
Insane.
or
in 6 weeks.
What?
In 6 weeks?
Back
You're
in those
lying.
days, the only way you could get the money was to put it into Instabanks.
$40,000 in 6 weeks.
It was like drug money. It was like,
It was better than drug money.
no, I had it bound in. My wife used to just laugh at it because she'd be like, "What is going on?" My father-in-law, at
Like
that time,
$2 bills back then.
it was crazy. Like, it was $5, $1, like sometimes 10s. We had
Like
all the same
stacked
coins.
in a bait. Like, that's a lot of.
Like, I'm talking, like, it looked like we were doing a drug deal. That's how much money, and it was all bound. And so I was jamming these, like, trying to get the money into the Instabanks, right? Like, because that's how you would deposit it.
Yeah.
And so they finally, after about a week, they issued me a notice saying, you got to stop shoving money into our bank, because we were jamming up the machines. Like, I'm talking, like, it would take me an hour to break it all down and put it into the envelopes to get it into the machines. So it was just a crazy story, but that was my start, because I didn't have, honestly, guys, for lack of a better word, I didn't have a pot to piss in. I didn't have any money, and yet I had this vision and I wanted to do this, and I was super proud, and I wanted to do it on my own terms. But it gave me the ability to buy, I think we bought 2 treadmills. We bought like a universal system. I was able to do this all with this money. And so I poured it all into, but this is I'll just end it after this. But my father-in-law came to me and he goes, okay. He said, what are we doing next year? He says, we're going to go cross Canada, right, with this thing? And I said, cross Canada? I go, I have no interest in Tricky Triangle. I said, this doesn't drive me. I said, I'm going into personal training. And he goes, what are you doing? Because you got to remember, like, he's older.
Yeah.
And he's like,
and he sees you're on one path.
And you're making a bank, you're bankrolling
I
this.
showed,
Like,
yeah, and I showed him, I said, this is my business plan. And he reads through this thing and he looks at me and he goes, explain, how does this work? And I said, people are going to pay, back in those days, it was like $45 an hour for training. It was insane. So I said, people are going to pay me $45 an hour and I'm going to help them with their, with training. And he said, hang on a second. People are going to pay you. How often are they going to do this? And I said, they're going to probably come 2 to 3 times a week.
Yeah.
And he goes, he didn't say anything. He just went quiet. And he later said to my wife, he goes, I don't think this will ever happen. Like he said, there's no way. There's nobody that'll do this. Like, write me a program and I'll do the program. And I said, no. I said, you can't come to my club. If you want me to just write you a program that you can go down the street and do that. If you want to come and get results, you come and you train with me professionally.
He just wanted you on Tricky Triangle.
And he wanted me. He says, you could go across.
You want to make some money.
Every year you could have, I was calling it a stocking stuffer, right? So I said, this is the world's, so that was, I left that out, but I called it the world's greatest stocking stuffer.
Yeah.
So it was like this toy that would fit nicely into a stocking, but it was also a great conversation piece. Like imagine if you're back home and you're like, hey, what else you got, Ciara? And you're like, hey, well, like, give this a try.
Yeah.
Bet you can't do it. What is it?
Yeah.
It's called Tricky Triangle. Get them all to sit. It doesn't work. But I'll tell you how it works, right? So what it is the marbles, right? Like the magnetic polarity is north.
I wish
and
you
south,
had one. Do you
right?
still have one?
I know.
are they out of business?
No, I haven't seen them, but somebody brought one in the other day and said, hey, is this the tool you're talking? And I said, yeah, that's it. But basically, why it was possible for me to do it so fast is because when they put the magnet in, so if you have a magnet sitting north and south, it's neutral polarity, so it won't repel and attract the marble beside it, because it's only if the marble's shifted off a little bit.
Yeah.
So that's what would cause the marble to push out or attract, right?
Wow.
Does that make sense?
Is that why you'd go down on your knee then to try to get level?
No, I would do it at the level of the table so people didn't see it. But what I would do is I would find this, there was a seam where they had to stick the magnet inside this plastic casing. So it was like a marble, but they had to seal it, right? To put the marble in.
Yeah.
So I would feel for the seam and then I would know that's north and south, right? And so I go bang, bang. And I got so good at it that they couldn't actually like tell.
Yeah.
And so then they'd be like, how do you do it? And then people would look and they'd be like, I think I know how to figure this out. There might have been one guy who was an engineer that figured it out like instantly.
So then you went into Body by Bennett, and then Lise, we were chatting a little bit about, did you hear this part before we went live? That Simon said that he had a goal, right?
Yeah.
Of a certain amount of clients, and you reached that.
Yeah, like honestly, like it's a crazy story, but we reached our business plan, which was 5 years in 2 months.
You're
and
insane.
I looked at David and I said, David, I go, you got to start training. And he goes, I don't know anything about training. And I said, I'll teach you. So that was back in the day when like there was no real training program for what we did other than if I went through, because I graduated with an exercise science degree. So it was like on top of my, with my education degree as well, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So my undergraduate was the exercise science degree. Anyways, so what was interesting is that I had the training. David had no training other than teaching high impact aerobics.
Yeah.
Right? That was what he was teaching back in those days.
But that was popular.
But it was popular. Oh yeah. Like, I mean, it was crazy. And they were like, it was like a dance show really more than anything. But what's crazy is that the fact that he came and wanted to actually do it was crazy because like he had no training in it. But I said, don't worry, Dave, you're going to model everything that I do. And I had everything kind of laid out as to how I would work somebody out, what he would do. And he just kind of learned it through osmosis. And then by the end of that year, so you have to understand, like, so we opened the club in, I think it was like March or April. I think it was April. And so by Christmas time, he was fully booked.
Wow.
So we then hired a well-known guy in the city. I don't know if you guys know him, but Paul Placas. And so he was at the Center Club. So back in the old days, that red building there where Lloyd Sat is the Center Club. And it's this high-end coochie kind of like business where all the who's who go. And it was before my time, to be honest with you, but it was sort of winding down. And I knew this guy, Paul Placas, was there. And I said, let's talk to Paul and see if he wants to come over. He came over, and then it just snowballed, and we started getting trainer after trainer after trainer. And we built it up. We had a really nice core of about 7 or 8 guys. And we said, we need to expand again. So we expanded the existing facility into the atrium area, which has this beautiful spiral staircase and everything. And that's where we kind of stayed. And then
I would have loved to see this place.
I know, that was like the old school downtown days.
That was my greatest regret, was actually not renewing the lease with the Wheatons back in those days, because we should have, like, it was such a unique,
especially with the staircase,
ambience.
it sounds like.
So crazy.
Like what a cool spot. I mean, you kind of have done that with Archetype. It is a cool space. I'm so curious, because you clearly out of the gate don't listen to people. Like once you decide on an idea, like where do you think that comes from? And what have you learned? Like, how did you have that confidence where you just knew, and you clearly were always right, even when people doubted you after multiple successes?
Yeah, I think a lot of it came from, like, I'm competitive, I think, which helps. Like, I hate to lose, but I think a lot of it came from coming from the north end of town. Like, I used to live in the woods. And like, and I'm not saying that like that, it's just that I was always a have not, right? And, and I think, I never had things when I was a kid, like as a parent, like I had to like have paper routes to put myself through hockey. Like my parents wouldn't pay for anything. And not because that was bad or good, or it was just that they just couldn't afford it. And so I developed like a really strong work ethic, which honestly I credit my parents to, because, they almost through osmosis, like I just had to kind of fend for myself. And I remember crying because I had to do my paper route because I couldn't go to a hockey game. So there's memories of that, like that kind of like, I think emboldened who I became. And then I just kind of had this creative side to me where I could see things and then go, okay, we got to do that. Like,
happen.
I want to make it happen. I want to follow that. And so I wouldn't say like I'm a pure entrepreneur in the sense like a Daryl Cates where, he just has this massive vision for things. I'd say mine is very localized to what is my passion, which is, I call it fitness entrepreneur,
right?
But call it a well-being entrepreneur. And like, I'm super passionate about like what we can do to expand in that area. And like, that's really my story, is over the years, I've just constantly added to the layers.
And you were with the Oilers too. Like, talk about that. A lot of people, I mean, obviously in Edmonton.
I grew the largest hockey program, off-ice hockey program. I had a skate treadmill, like it was $100,000 skate treadmill. Like it was, like so as part of Body by Bennett, we put it into my downtown club. Like we had built a space out to do this. And then I started getting all the top players. Like I was training at that time. There's a lot of guys that, you probably wouldn't remember, but they were all NHL level players. But my biggest coup was I got this kid, Mike Comrie, back when he was like 14.
Yeah.
And I started training him, and he was just this phenom, and just every level he played at, and I just rode his coattails. Like I just literally was guilty by association with him. Like he was just so talented and so gifted. And he had a brother, Paul, who was also, but he had concussion issues. And he got me Sean Horkoff. And then what happened is that eventually I think Mac T said, Simon, like, what do we got to do to get you over at the club? And so the rest was kind of history, because it was like, whoa, this is like the pinnacle of the industry. But I'm going to tell you something, guys. Back in those days, I had 4 things that I wanted to achieve. One was I wanted to train Bill Comrie from the Brick, because I knew if I got Bill Comrie.
That's Mike's dad.
Yeah. So I would get him. That was one of my goals. My other goal was to get Peter Pocklington, who owned the Oilers originally, right?
Right.
Cool, yeah.
And I ended up training him, right?
No way.
So you're just crossing them off the list.
That's so interesting, such specific things.
Yes, names.
And then Ross Grieve, PCL Construction. So I knew he was the most prominent like business guy in the city.
Smart.
And David had a connection to him, so I ended up training him. And he's like a good friend of mine, and so those were kind of like the springboards.
You were strategic in getting your name out there.
But I had because I had like this, like when they say like what you think about, you become. Like what you become, what you think about. That was Peter Pocklington saying, like, you become what you think about. But that's, I think, some of the original sort of like motivational gurus that kind of started things. But it was this idea that if you think about something and you concentrate hard enough and long enough on it, it starts to come into your life, right? Mm-hmm. And so that is absolutely true, because I used to like dream about training, because I knew Bill Comrie had a hockey background, but I also knew that he was also tied to the Brick, and the Brick was the biggest business in that city. That was the most profile.
Huge.
Yeah.
And I knew his kids were in hockey. So there was all these things that I kind of knew. And Peter Pocklington was the owner of the Oilers, right? He never offered me the position, but that was back in the days when that wasn't really, strength and conditioning coach wasn't a big thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know if the connection was quite there. So it was a little bit early, but anyways, long story short, that's kind of how I did it, is I just kind of visualized, you asked me, what kind of was the motivator, and it was more just this idea of like trying to get out of the North End, like not be a have-not, like try to create some life for myself. And then, but follow something that really got me up out of bed, which is a passion. And then just literally using your creative mind to try to figure out like what's next and what are you going to do, and keep growing and keep, advancing what you do. Right.
It's such an interesting time then, because, we're in an interesting time, even like what Ciara and I have done pivoting to this. I think we both envisioned this and talked about it, a year ago, whatever. And then you never thought it would come, but there's the technology now is huge. So it's a different industry in terms of what you can dream. But when you were coming up, like it was such a unique time because you didn't have a lot of resources, but a lot of things had not been created yet. Think about it. Cell phones did not even exist then.
No.
So just the fact that you were able to do that and you had the visions is pretty remarkable.
Yeah,
because
and get into contact with all of those people as well.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. Your network.
You're so right about the seeing the future too, because like I just remember like I'm a co-creator of Viper. So
yes, you need to talk to us about Viper
and
next.
explain what it is to people.
So Viper is basically a whole body training tool. So it looks like a rubber tube.
Okay, wait, before you get into it, when did you create this? Because we have classes now at Archetype.
I know.
And by the way, Ciara and Simon work together.
Yes.
Well, you work for Simon.
Yeah, she does.
Yes. Thanks for hiring me, Simon.
She's a spin instructor at Archetype.
And I love it. It's the best place.
She's great.
But Simon, when did these come about, and then get into what they are?
So it was about 15 years ago, to be honest with you guys. Like it's a while ago. Yeah, like it's crazy.
Oh.
So Viper is a huge success story, sold in 54 countries around the world. But you asked me what it is.
Yeah, what is it?
So it's a whole body training tool. So why we created it, the story around it is crazy. Like, so
all your stories are crazy.
Yes, seriously.
It's crazy. It was basically rolled up mats bound with a belt. And so we had areas of our floor in the gym, Body by Bennett, back in the old days, that didn't have rubber flooring in it. So I ordered a bunch of rubber flooring, and it came in this big 10-foot sheet, and it was like an inch too high, not an inch too high. It was an inch thick, which is, I think, almost a quarter inch too high based on the rest of our. So it just kind of sat there rolled up. And one day it tipped over and we picked it up and we're like, holy shit, that's actually quite like heavy. Like it actually is a workout. And we started like lifting it around and like adding it into things like squatting and stuff like that. And we're like, Jesus, like, then we took it outstairs. We started throwing it down the stairs, dragging it, and then it broke. The thing broke it. Like, so we got another belt and we tied the belt around it and we tried to make sure like we had two belts on it to keep it together. And we just kept like adding things to it, like lunges and then, we were trying to like feed into this idea of like the body is one muscle, not 600 individual muscles. Like, so when you train it, you want to train it in an integrated way. You want to train it the way you would move in a natural way. And so that was the inspiration, is like the problem with barbells and dumbbells, it's hard to weight functional movements because it's awkward and it doesn't really move with the way the body is designed. But Viper was designed to be able to move with you in a synchronicity type of way.
Yeah.
And like with a fluidity. And so that your body would kind of yin and yang as you kind of move through it, but it would also offer a load. And so now we know that the science is very clear on why this is important, because you want to load movement patterns, right? Because the body will lay down tissue along lines of stress. So that's a law. Whoa. It's called Davis's law. So it's actually connected to science. And so it makes you stronger as a whole from fingertip to toe. So that was
But is that
Viper.
why it's hollow? Because you can feel the air rolling through?
Moving through it. Yeah. So it creates a fluidity. So like, I don't know if you've ever seen that like series that I do on my Instagram where I wrap it around my head and I flip it around.
Oh, I've done the classes.
Yeah. So
It also kind of, just for people to know, to visualize it, if you don't know what it looks like, it reminds me of like, remember the show Gladiator?
Yes.
And they're holding those long, it's like a long cylinder. It's like a log, and and you hold it. And
but there's handles and there's different weights.
Yeah. So that's a strongman tool, right?
Oh.
So so I think it's weird, but so what happened was Michelle and I were doing these lectures on functional movement, and we created this program called RMA training, reactive movement ability training. We trained it for hockey players. We created a video, like I could show you the videos. It was crazy. And anyways, and so we created this system, and we were lecturing in Toronto at CanFit Pro, like the shows and stuff. And we were, going through all the science and like the movement patterns. And we had like audience of like 100 like fitness professionals that were, moving
them around.
We didn't have Viper. And we went back to, do you know Le Germain in Toronto?
Yeah.
It's a beautiful boutique hotel.
Yes.
And we went back there and I said, Michelle, let's go for a quick bite to eat. And then let's really think, like, maybe we should do something with that rolled up mat. And I go, there's something there. We should maybe try to figure it out. And he's like, yeah. I think you're right, Benny. And so anyway, so we went back and we started saying, like, what if we got holes in it so you could hold on to it better? Or like,
and this is still the mat, the rolled up mat. Okay.
yeah. And
Wow.
so then we said, why don't we go to a rubber manufacturer and see, like, a rubber guy and see if he can fabricate something for us where we can do it. And so I have the original prototypes. The first one just completely didn't hold shape. The idea was too big. And so after a couple rounds, we kind of figured out we got one. And so we started playing with it. And we used to do this thing called Rochambeau, which is like, you go, I go, you go, I go, you go, I go. And we'd put it in the middle and we'd say, come up with 2 or 3 different exercises you can do with this Viper tool. And so we got Sean Horkoff involved in it. Like, we had like our athletes at that time that were getting into it, and they were like, oh my God, this thing's amazing. And so that was kind of the early days for it. And then Michelle and I started going to trade shows and trying to like peddle it to organizations. We went to a company called, at that time it was a company called Free Motion. And
this is in Toronto.
No, this was, so they were in Colorado, but
okay.
We were going to trade shows. Like, I went to Chicago, I took it in the frickin', so it would actually fit nicely in a
carry-on,
a rollaway for golf bag, like a golf
yes.
bag. So I stored it in
Smart.
that, and then I would take these guys that I thought were influential, and I take them into the back, like in the back of the trade show, and I'd say, hey, do you want to see something cool? And they're like, oh my God, this thing is crazy. And we'd start flipping it around. I'd start throwing it and showing them all these things, and they're like, dude, I get it. I get what you're doing. I see what you're doing. This is freaking sick. Like, this is amazing. We hadn't sold a dime. Like, we hadn't, like, nothing. And so we got to the 1 yard line and then the president got fired or got let go for Free Motion.
Yeah.
We had a deal in place. Anyways, it collapsed. And then we were able to reposition a deal because we knew a guy that ran a company that sold to a company in the UK called FitPro, and they agreed to come on and license the product. And that was kind of our death, because that was my first lesson in business, that you never want to license anything because you basically give away your rights to the company.
Totally.
So we did about $11.5 million in sales in, I think, the first 10 years. But the problem was we never saw a dime, because when you are once you license a product, they can decide like how they're going to issue.
That's so
rents.
brutal.
So it's like, but it's not, it's business, right? And you just kind of learn that lesson the hard way. So that it's harder to try to get a product to market on your own, where you go into debt and you start to, or you can go and license it. But the problem is that if you don't know unfortunately, you don't have any leverage because you haven't really sold a lot of them. If you have sales, it's a different game.
Especially for a product like that, it takes a lot of inventory and like overhead, and to make big money and for it to go around the world, like you need help.
But also it's pretty cool. I mean, they're on basketball, NBA.
Yeah.
NBA sidelines. If you look, Vipers are there.
Just being fully transparent, like, I'm out of Viper now, right?
Okay.
So I don't have any, I sold my interest out because Michelle wanted to take it to another level. And I was going to work for the Oilers, and I just had all these things.
A lot going on.
And I just said, look, I can't throw money at something that I'm just not involved in. And he moved down to the States to do this. So he left. He used to work at Body by Bennett. He went down to the States and started doing this. And so, but honestly, like, full kudos to him, because we were able to push this thing through.
And you're still the co-creator. That is the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
Is that hard though? I mean, walking away, like, and when we see it blow up, I mean, that's money. And like, or do you feel kind of okay with that?
I'm okay with it. Like I could have been, like, when I sold out my interest, like, I mean, I could have been, but I wanted to see it go. Like, I really did. Like, I kind of go for my heart, and I really wanted to see it go. And I knew that I wasn't willing to put the time in to do it. And I knew he wanted to. And so anyways, it all worked out. And he's like the greatest guy in the world. Like, he always gives me full cred for like everything that happened and is happening with it. But the tool is now called Viper Pro. And so it's a really cool, like, new iterated version of.
Is that the ones that we have in the gym?
Yeah, it's the one we have in the gym. Yeah.
Wild.
And so it's such a cool thing. But it just another one of those things along the way, just to, in my path. Right. And
So now what,
Yeah.
Simon?
Well,
Well, I
wait,
went-
he's also got another
so-
thing going on.
Oh,
Yeah.
He also
True.
is another co-creator, co-founder
Yeah.
of Sense Naturals.
Yeah. I mean, that's
I heard
amazing.
Miley Cyrus reached out to you. Is that true?
Well, I don't know anything about that. No. We honestly, like
Give us some tea, pun
No,
intended.
It is the tea.
the tea. What's in the tea, right?
What's in the tea?
What's in the
tea
tea?
of the tea.
No, I wish Miley Cyrus would reach
Miley
out to me.
Cyrus,
I
if you're
would
listening to
like
this,
to-
get
Yeah.
some sense.
We should
Yeah,
have had it poured a cup
I-
of here on Off Air Talk.
I would love to but anyways, getting back to the tea, 'cause you asked a question about the tea. So it was COVID, right? And, we were getting locked down, things were getting shut down, like Archetype. I didn't know what was going to happen. Like, no
Right.
revenue, no nothing, everything's going dark. And I remember it was the second lockdown, right? And it was like towards the end of December. And Brad said to me, he said, Simon, you got to go see this guy. Like, this guy is amazing, and you're in the space. You should really do yourself a service and go see, this gentleman that is now our formulator. And he says, and you should see how he does his work. And I said, well, what is he doing? He said, well, it's kind of like energy work, but it's a massage, but it's not really any one of those things. It's very unique and different. And he goes, but he's healing. So, and I had a neck injury from snowboarding. So I was like, it's kind of like, yeah, I've had this, like, maybe the energy work would be good for me. So I went to see him, and honestly, it was like a religious experience. Like, he was like next level. I mean, I can't even describe, like, he was unlocking chakras. So he was like, basically, if you kind of look at if you understand a little bit of the Ayurvedic approach and Eastern philosophy to how the body heals, they heal through lines of energy, right? So pathways, they call them meridians, and these meridians can get blocked. And so you have, I think it's 7 different chakras. And so those chakras can get blocked. And so if they get blocked, they can impede your health. It can be manifested as whatever. It can prevent healing and all these things. And so he was doing this crazy, like, on my back, he was like rubbing his hands together. And I guess he was heating up the chakra to try and get it, I don't know, to unblock, or I don't know what the language would be to describe that, but it was so intense. Like, the heat that was coming off his hands, it felt like he was holding a lighter on my back. That's how hot it was. And I was like literally one steamboat away from screaming. Like, that's how painful the discomfort of his creating the heat with his hands.
And he wasn't even touching you.
Wasn't even touching me, just over top of the.
That is insane.
It was insane. It was crazy. And so, but he kept applying these oils to my body, and he was like, okay, smell this, right? And I'd smell it. He said, inhale deeply, right? So I'd inhale deeply. And then really, it was, each time he did it, it was like different colors, like green and like bright orange and like intense colors. Like if you were looking at a fruit palette, like it was like all those colors that you could imagine, like beautiful. And I said, Tobias, I said, where do you get this stuff? And he's like, I make it. And I sat up and I was like, you make it? How do you make this stuff? And he goes, I make a lot of things. So then
I bet he does.
I'm like, yeah. And then I sat down. And I was like thinking while he was doing this, now my brain was moving, right? And I was thinking, I want like blends for Archetype. Like, this is what I want. I want holistic, like healing, and I want this kind of stuff. And so he basically said, at the end of my session, he said, Simon, listen, he goes, you need healing. And so what I'd like to do is I'd like to put you on a family recipe. And I said, well, what is it? And he said, well, it's a formulation. He says, and then he stops and he goes, you see, Simon, I come from 29 Ayurvedic doctors, and, we have a recipe that we use to help with healing. It's been handed down through my family apothecary for over 200 years.
Wow.
And he goes, so if you know Ayurvedic, and I said, well, I know a little bit, but I'm not quite on top of it, but I know enough to be dangerous. And he said, it's a whole philosophy around healing and using whole foods. It's the largest whole food system in the world. It's called Ayurveda. And he goes, it's been around for 4,000 years. So then I was like, wow, that's, I knew some of this, but so some of it was reconfirming information that I already knew.
Yeah.
But then I was like also very intrigued. And so he had brought this like tea out, and it was in a little tin cup. And he says, take it twice a day, 1 scoop. It was like the size of a teaspoon. And I said, how do you do it? And he goes, you add hot water, that'll steep the tea, and then you add lemon and honey to it. And he says, just stir it and enjoy. Drink it twice a day. So I was like, wow. And in my mind, I was thinking, like, I'm a tough case. Like, I don't have a lot going wrong. Like, I'm pretty healthy. I wonder if I'll really notice much of anything. And, it was about a week in, 20 days. I kind of stopped thinking about it, right? And
but you were following it religiously, two
yeah.
times a day.
And and then so this is where I tell my story about the fact that I've been a lifelong IBS sufferer for 25 years. I never told them about my stomach issues, so I never had normal bowel movements. I always had bloating and gas. I was honestly, I'd get intense pain and attacks in my stomach that were very much almost like, I don't want to say colitis, but like, I hear colitis is a much more, obviously more debilitating condition depending on where you're at.
Yeah.
And so anyways, it was intense for me, and it would put you off, and I'd lose energy, and I'd have to leave work and stuff like that. It was pretty debilitating. But I went through the whole process of like going through doctors thinking you had cancer, thinking you had all these things going on, the health issues. And I'm like, here I am, 20, whatever years of age. And I'm thinking like I got cancer and all this stuff. So I don't want to overblow this, but it was, those thoughts were going through my head because I was a health guy, and I was like, health was important to me. So I was getting worried. And then you realize, like, after all this testing, nothing's really coming back. And they're saying, well, you're kind of normal. Like, I don't know, there's nothing wrong with you. And then you're kind of like, okay, well, now I have to start investigate for myself. So you go that path. And I got to about 25 years where I was like, just kind of in the closet now, like just accepting this is my new normal. Never told them anything about this. And 20 days in, all of a sudden, I have a normal bowel movement. And I'm like, this is crazy. Like, I haven't seen this in like 25 years. So that's what it started with. And so I got on the phone. I was talking to Brad, and I said, Brad, I don't know about all this other stuff, but I said, my bowels have never been better. And he goes, dude, send me a picture. No, I'm kidding.
I was like,
shit.
whoa.
Yeah.
Literally, shit.
Yeah.
I always threaten to tell him that I'm going to say, hey, send me a picture. He goes, he always says, are you kidding me?
That's worse than nudes.
Yeah, seriously.
So then I'm like, no, dude, this is helping my stomach. And I said, so I went back to Tobias, and I said, Tobias, is this stuff supposed to be helping with GI? And he said, Simon, that's what Ayurveda is rooted in. Like, it starts with healing in the stomach first. But
So it's like
helps
gut
with
health.
Inflammation. Yeah, gut health.
Maybe you should get on that.
I was
that.
like, yeah. So then I knew there's a lot of people that were suffering with this, right? Like when you think colitis,
Totally.
Crohn's, like, IBS, irritable bowel, people with chronic fatigue syndrome, all this stuff.
And just assuming it's like they're gluten-free or celiac or
Right.
whatever, or they're lactose intolerant.
And I always tell people the story that like I was gluten-free, dairy-free, like I was like elimination diets. I was like removing everything. There was nothing left in my diet other than like, chickpeas and frickin' whatever else I could eat. But that's how extensive it would get. But if I ate the wrong food, man, my stomach would blow up and I'd have to literally undo my belt buckle.
That's me.
And go, yeah.
It's like, actually.
I know.
It's crazy.
It's insane.
I need this sense tea.
You do, but you got to drink it twice a day.
I know.
So
because you did give it to me and I didn't follow it.
So I would just add one thing here, which is that I don't think there's no magic bullet, but this had helped me because it does address inflammation. So the tea is a combination of 10 ingredients, things like turmeric, beetroot, fennel, cacao, ginger, cinnamon. These are all things that probably people are taking ad hoc, right? Like, oh, I heard turmeric is supposed to be good.
Yeah.
But when you culminate them the way they did in this recipe, there's a synergistic power. And that was confirmed when we went to Health Canada, because when you go to Health Canada, you have to be able to show. So in Canada, you have drugs, natural health products, and supplements, right? Supplements can't make claims. Natural health products are bound to clinical trials that have to be done on ingredients in order to be able to make a claim.
Right.
So if you say reduces inflammation, Health Canada wants to know which product are you saying does that? Oh, turmeric. Okay. And at what dose and what stability and all the rest of it.
Wow.
Right? So then if you match their science, right, then you can say, yeah, you can say it reduces inflammation. You've shown that your product has that amount. So it's the curcumin.
But you have to be approved by them before you can say that.
Right. But 10 ingredients, right? We only got 5 because it was almost a year and a half, I would say probably a year and a half is what it took to get through. We kept getting turned down. very red tapey, but at the same time also like very careful with what they do.
Yeah.
And so in kind of a good way. But you just have to keep putting that application back in. It keeps going back to the front door, which is 90 days.
And you couldn't sell in markets until you had that approved?
Right.
Oh, wow.
Exactly.
You guys, so really.
But we were trying it, like we were giving it to family, friends.
Right.
Like Brad and I were doing as much as we could to try to, get people's feedback anecdotally.
Right.
And so, but honestly, like it was really me where it was kind of like, oh my God, this thing really helps with the stomach.
Yeah.
And so the GI system, but our ingredients are also recognized to reduce joint pain. So there's actually a study done on turmeric specifically, and it is a double-blinded, peer-reviewed study, and it talks about osteoarthritis in knee pain, right, and knee joints. And it's very compelling, but you have to have the right amount. This is where the whole thing kind of really gets to why it works.
Oh my gosh, Simon, we could sit here and talk to you for days. So you are so talented, and we are so grateful to know you. And thank you for coming on Off Air Talks. I'm Ciara Yaschuk.
And I am Lisa MacGregor.
Thanks, ladies. Yeah, no, appreciate you guys inviting me on here. I wish we could just talk forever.
Can you please open an apothecary in Edmonton?
Yeah, please.
Yes.
That's the next one.
Yeah, absolutely. No, for sure. With cold tub.